So a lot happened in 2012. I remember I was a sophomore that year in high school. I also remember people thought that the world was going to end. But one thing I wasn't super aware of at the time was that Kendrick Lamar dropped his amazing, fantastic album, Good Kid, Mad City. Now, I want to address a few things first before we get started into this. Is that this review took a while, obviously. I've posted, I think, one or two videos between this coming out and my last album review, and that's because I am scared. I was mainly nervous about getting my facts wrong because the thing with this album is it's a conceptual album, but I want to make sure that I got my facts right, that this is based off a true story or loosely based off a true story. And it seems, from what I've looked into, it is. It's based off a true story that happened in Kendrick Lamar's life. And for the fact that it's most likely true, I'm going to treat it as if it is true 100%. I mean, Kendrick actually straight up said it in an interview. So, yeah, we'll just go for the sake of it that it's true. I wanted to make sure that I wouldn't disrespect anyone who's either still alive or has sadly passed, spoiler alert, during the events of this album. I want to try to approach this as respectful as possible. Hello, my name is Brandon. I am a gamer, music lover, and aspiring voice actor. Obviously, I am not an African American. I am white, and I was lucky enough to grow up in a relatively safe neighborhood. If I left like my neighborhood, the neighborhood outside, like the streets, were not great, not the safest, and they're definitely not. I think it's gotten worse over the years, but I was lucky enough to grow up in a all right house, like with loving parents, and yeah, away from gangs and all that stuff. So I know for a fact I cannot self-insert myself into the story of this album. All I can do is be an outsider looking in, and I feel like that's an important way to approach this album. If you are in my position, that's like the best way you should approach this album. Do not self-insert yourself because you just won't be able to relate. So yeah, with this review, I'm being a little bit on the on the cautious side of things, but yeah. Before we get into the tracks and the story revolving this album, let's take a look at the packaging a bit. Alrighty, so here's the album art for the album, and I think this is the best version of the album art in my opinion because it's the most relevant to the story that happens throughout this album. And it's actually the main reason I got the deluxe edition in the first place opposed to just the normal one, because the normal one, it's a it's like a photo of when he was like a baby, and it's like a family portrait, which is cool and all, and shows that this is gonna be a personal album, but it doesn't fit the narrative as much as the van here does. There's also a alternate Spotify one that I did have. It came with like a colored disc, so that's always an option too if you want to get that. That also is like the van in a black room, but it seemed too modern, and this kind of places you in like the time period that this story takes place, which I'm assuming is like the 90s or maybe the late 80s. And yeah, this is really cool. In here, we got the credits here on this side. Then we got some more photos of Kendrick on this side. And there's a young Kendrick Lamar right there. Lots of cute photos. I believe that's him with his mom, if I am correct. This looks like the family portrait almost, or like at least in the same area. And yeah, them at the beach. Yeah, a bunch of cute family portraits. Looking at the back, it shows, I believe this, oh, I didn't even notice this until I looked in this light. I think this is the car that him and his friends drove around in, kind of. It really looks like it. Then all the track lists are right here on the side. Pretty neat album. Very iconic album cover if you have a wall that you hang your vinyls on like I do. This is a great album to include on that. Like I said, iconic for just not just how it looks, but also the relevance to the story of the album. Tells you a whole lot. Definitely love this album. And the stuff it contains, well, it's not a lot, it's still pretty good. Okay, so I took a lot of notes. Shocker. The last two albums I took a lot of notes too, but I took a lot of notes, so if you see me kind of looking down a bit, I apologize. I just took a whole lot of notes. So some fun facts about this album before we get started. This is a follow-up from his mixtape called Section 80. That's important for later on in the album, actually. That's actually a very important thing for one of the songs. So just keep that in mind that this is his second album. Even though Section 80, whether you want to call it an album or a mixtape, it's called both pretty much, so it's kind of confusing. You might notice something kind of weird with the album's title with the whole acronyms thing with m.A.A.d. Well, let me tell you what it means. So m.A.A.d is actually an acronym that has two meanings according to Kendrick. My angry adolescence divided, which could represent him just being a teen when all of this has happened with the whole adolescence thing. And my angels on angel dust, which is a reference on why he doesn't do drugs or smoke crack, which is further explained on in the song m.A.A.d City. Also, the main events of this album take place in a single day. I believe that there are some parts that take place in the past. So side A starts with the song Shireen, aka Master Splinter's daughter. Now, another thing to point out with this album is that to guide the listener through the story, something that Kendrick uses as a device to kind of help with it, or to help kind of get people to see visually where he's at, is through voice memos, voice recordings, and stuff like that. So the album begins with a voice recording of Kendrick and his friends reciting a prayer. Now this prayer is very important. It's a very important plot point in this album, and it will return back on later in the album. So kind of keep that in mind. Now this song is about Kendrick being in love with this girl named Shireen and how they've been talking all summer long and he's just in love and he's finally going to meet up and hook up with her. However, when he arrives, it's revealed at the end of the song that there are two guys in hoodies waiting for him. Basically, it was a trap, which is why he refers to her as Master Splinter's daughter, because she's a rat. And the song ends with a voice message from his mom asking him, can I have my van back? I need my van back. Something about his dad and dominoes or something. That's another reason I wanted to get the deluxe version, is because this van is apparently the van, or a van that looks like the van that Kendrick is driving with in this song and in m.A.A.d City. Track 2 is Bitch Don't Kill My Vibe. You've probably heard this one before. You've probably heard a lot of these before if you were a high schooler in my time. I remember hearing this song around, but like I said, I haven't really gotten into Kendrick Lamar until I think Creed 2 was coming out, and there was that trailer with the epic DNA remix, and that's when I looked into Kendrick a little bit. But I feel like this song is a jump to the future to present day Kendrick Lamar in 2012. When I say present day, by the way, throughout this album, this review, I'm talking 2012. He notices that the rap game has changed, and it seems like a lot more people are interested in the getting a check than the actual art of rap and art and music in general. Hello, Editing Brandon here. I just want to point something out. So I actually recorded this review on September 10th, the night before Kendrick dropped Watch the Party Die. So I must have somehow conjured up the idea of him dropping it then. Probably not. Honestly, the VMAs, and it was 9/11 the next day. Anyways, I just wanted to point that out, mainly because, one, that's a crazy coincidence, and two, it does kind of have a similar theme, in my opinion, to what this song is. So it seems like his opinion has unfortunately not changed over the course of 12 years now, I believe. So yeah, just want to point that out. The song's chorus being as catchy and as repetitive as it kind of is, I believe kind of pushes this meaning onto the listener. Now, while this isn't super relevant to the story, I will say this. I remember around this time, Big Sean dropped a song called Control. I'm sure if you're familiar with the Kendrick Lamar lore, or you're a fan of Kendrick Lamar, you know about Control and his verse and how big and impactful it was. I feel like that was another way to kind of push this whole people caring more about the check than the art and the art form of rap and stuff. So that's why he kind of shook things up with his verse on Control. The song ends with Kendrick's buddies telling him to get in the car, we're going to hit the town, which leads us to Backseat Freestyle, which is a top 5 song on this album for me because it shows us kind of a different side of Kendrick that we don't usually see in his music nowadays that I actually really love. So the song takes us back to the beginning of the day that the first track takes place in. So this is before Kendrick's getting jumped by the two guys, and he's going to go see Shireen. And it's all about just freestyling in the back. This pretty much shows kind of, in my opinion, how carefree and how youthful he is, just with the lyrics in this song. Like the chorus being, all my life I want money and power. Respect my mind or die from lead shower. I pray my dick get big as the Eiffel Tower, so I can fuck the world for 72 hours. Now, these bars are actually very hilarious, and it has been shown over the years that Kendrick does have a sense of humor despite his music being so serious most of the time.
Ain't no cereal I couldn't have. None of that bullshit-ass Cheerios with the no sugar. What all that healthy shit, Raisin Bran? Stop talking to me. If you pick that up in the aisle walking with me, I'm liable to punch you in your face if you was my cousin.
There's a part where he changes his voice, and it gives me massive Eminem vibes. And it is said, he did say several times that two of his biggest influences are Tupac and Eminem. He has other influences too, but I just remember specifically him saying Tupac and Eminem because everyone listened to Tupac, and Eminem was Eminem. So next is The Art of Peer Pressure. And this song's all about how he feels like he has to do things that he's not normally comfortable with because he's with his homies. And shortly after the song starts, the beat does switch and it changes the vibe of the song very drastically. Like I mentioned, he raps about how he doesn't usually do certain things like smoke, drink, or gangbang unless he's with his homies. And his friends convince him to rob this house. Then things get a little bit more intense with the police being called and them having to pretty much escape the police. And they nearly get caught, but they're able to dodge the cops and they escape. The song ends with a voice recording about how the robbery's gonna go down, so right before this all happens, and what their plans are later for that day, including Kendrick getting some booty. But the one in front of the gun lasts forever. Money Trees is this track. Now, this is probably up there with one of Kendrick's most popular songs and most iconic songs in a way. This song is about his dreams of making it big, and in reality, at the time, he realizes his circumstances where he's, more on the poorer side of things, and he's not in the best circumstances. It's just not great. The Money Trees might be referring to rich people's houses and how robbing them could get Kendrick and his friends a lot of money to get them out of the circumstances that they're in. The bars, you looking like an easy come up, ya bish. A silver spoon, I know you come from, ya bish. And that's a lifestyle that we never knew. Go at a reverend for the revenue. For some reason, plants that seed in my head that's what he means by money trees, is these rich people that don't have to worry about the circumstances around them because, they're rich and they can afford to live in nice neighborhoods and be away from all the gangs. J-Rock also has a verse in this, and he raps about having to deal drugs to feed his family. It's a pretty good verse, actually. The song ends with a recording that takes place after the one from Master Splinter's Daughter, where Kendrick's mom is asking for the truck back yet again, and you can hear his dad flirting with her this time. He's getting kind of freaky. It's really funny, honestly. For this intense album, there's quite a few funny moments thrown in there. Next, we get Poetic Justice. Oh, gosh. I believe the song's name comes from the movie Poetic Justice, which starred Tupac Shakur. So I would figure that this one would be one of the best songs on the album. I personally think it's not. So I gotta say, this one, it's definitely very awkward to listen to after recent events. The beat on this is very different and smooth from the rest of the album so far, and I believe this actually takes us back in time to when he first meets Shireen. Mainly considering how it seems like throughout the song he's flirting with a girl, and the main love interest in this being Shireen. Then Drake has a verse. Anyways. Okay, I have to tell you guys my thoughts on Drake real quick. I've never been a fan of Drake, not just because of the fact that he has done very creepy things. I just could never get into his music. I thought it was very generic and boring, and this verse just kind of adds on to one of the reasons I don't like Drake. I thought that this verse was very boring and just kind of generic, which is why I really don't like listening to the song that much. But yeah, this song ends with an ominous tone that was heard in the first track, actually. I forgot to mention that. And we are being fast forwarded back to when Kendrick is getting jumped. This is when it's about to happen. This is Good Kid. This one is probably my third favorite song on the deluxe edition of this album, but my second on the normal bass album. Now, this song kind of takes place during the story. I see this kind of as a transition to, like, I don't know what's going on now if we're looking at story-wise, but just like taking this out of the story, it's very great social commentary, especially with the uses of examples of red and blue, the colors. So red and blue are associated with two things when it comes to these kind of situations in these areas, and with black people specifically too. So in relations to gangs, red are the Bloods, or the Pyrus, I believe is another name for them. I could be wrong. If I'm wrong, let me put a correction on there. And then blue represents the Crips. Then also red and blue could signify the flashing lights from a police car. So there's kind of this is a pretty broad metaphor talking about, gangs and the police and, the Black American experience, which, like I said, I can't relate to. This is one of those songs where I'm kind of nervous to talk about it, honestly. So, for example, when it comes to the gang side of things, what we see are these lyrics. But what am I supposed to do when the topic is red or blue? Refers to gangs and how he doesn't mind that they'll hurt him because they know that one day, once he makes it big, they'll respect him. And, seeing how he was able to bring gangs together at the Pop-Out show really does show that, yeah, he's very respected in Compton. However, on the other side of that coin, we get these lyrics. But what am I supposed to do with the blinking of red and blue? Like I mentioned, I believe this refers to police lights, and that no matter what he does, they will not respect him, no matter how big he gets, because of the fact that he is an African American. And that is a problem that we've been seeing a lot of in recent years with the whole George Floyd thing, and that guy, like, just kneeling on his neck. And then, more recently, that woman and with the boiling water, and how the police gunned her down because she was going to use it as a weapon. It just kind of disgusts me that police brutality is just, it's so bad, and it's been getting worse, unfortunately, for minorities, and it pisses me off. It really does. Every time I hear something like this, I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? And the fact that it's getting worse is a big issue. This was back in 2012, this song, but it's only been getting worse and worse, especially now that we can see more of this because of body cam footage, because of, TikTok, YouTube. We can see all these things happening in real time. So if I'm being honest, how do we not know that this shit has been going on for years? Most likely it has been. And it just really upsets me and pisses me off anytime I think about it. So this song, I feel, did a great job for social commentary on these kind of issues, in my opinion. And yeah, I don't know. Fuck cops sometimes, I know they're meant to protect us, but I guess not really. Next, we get into the second part of the title track, Mad City, which I actually, with the context of this song, I believe this is the My Angels on Angel Dust meaning of the song. So this is him. He's getting jumped now. We're right back into the story. And this song has a lot to unpack, so we're going to be here for a minute. Kendrick expresses how he feels like the whole city's out to get him with the opening lines, "If Pyrus and Crips all got along, they'd probably gun me down by the end of the song. Seems like the whole city go against me. Every time I'm in the street, I hear yuck, 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 yuck." Now, this song touches a lot on gang violence. I believe that's the main focus of the song. And Kendrick, he uses some very brutal examples, like seeing a man getting his brains blown out because of his skin was a little lighter, as well as saying how his cousin was killed back in 1994. I mean, like, Jesus Christ. I don't think I've ever had a relative who was killed. I can't really think of that even happening. I can't imagine that happening. So just going around, like, living in an area where it's just kind of normal is kind of fucked up to me. He also warns the listeners of, like, colors you should wear or avoid wearing in certain areas. And, you know, you've been seeing me wearing this black bandana. I'm not affiliated with any gangs, obviously. I wear it just because, you know, I think it looks good. I have a very shitty hairline, and I like how M. Shadows of Avenged Sevenfold wears it. But I see red and blue bandanas everywhere I go, like every Walmart I go to. I avoid those. Like, I don't think there are any Bloods or Crips in my area, but I do not risk it, so I stay away from those. Whenever I go to, like, a specific city or anything like that, I do look up colors that I should avoid. So, yeah. And sometimes I'll just decide not even to risk it and just wear a cap. Okay, I'm gonna butcher this name, I betcha. I'm sorry if I do. But I believe it's MC8. I'm going to say that. It's either MC8 or MC8. I was like, which one is it? I think it's 8, though, now looking at it. He's on the song and plays the role of one of the men jumping Kendrick. He raps the chorus that I really cannot say, because I'm a white guy. I can't say that word. But the chorus essentially is saying, you know, I don't care who you know. Where are you from? Which insinuates, you know, I don't care that you know Shireen. I want to know where you're from. I want to know what you want to do with Shireen. Where are you from? Now the beat switches and Kendrick tells us a story about how he actually worked as a security guard for a while, but got fired after helping his homies stage a robbery. He also tells us that why he doesn't smoke weed is because of the fact that the first time he did it, it was laced with cocaine. And he said stuff like he was foaming from the mouth, he was tweaking, and oh God. My neurologist, by the way, says it's okay for me to get high, but, you know, I wouldn't want to mix cocaine with that. I would not. God, oh gosh. I don't blame him, honestly. That must have been traumatizing. MC8 starts rapping about how things work in the hood, specifically the rules to gangbanging and how Kendrick's experience with laced weed. It's nothing big. It's nothing really. It's a common thing. And I feel like MC8 did a great job at portraying this villainous character. I think he really nailed it. The song ends with Kendrick back with his homies after getting jumped and passing a bottle of alcohol to cope with what had just happened, which leads us to the next song, which is Swimming Pools Drink. Now, this is an extended version from the single that was put out before the album released, and it does flow more with the story, I believe. That's why it's extended. And this song takes place right after that voice recording. And despite the context of the album and what happened, this is actually an anti-drinking song. This is about, no, you shouldn't drink. No, don't drink. Drinking bad. Drinking very bad. He talks about all the reasons people drink, and he expresses how his problems went back to the theme of peer pressure that we've been hearing throughout this album, because that's one of the main topics of this album is all about peer pressure and how peer pressure is bad. He also expresses us that he had a problem with the bars. All I have in life is my new appetite for failure, and I got hunger pain that grow insane. Tell me, do that sound familiar? Song ends with a voice recording of them in the car discussing what happens. Oh my God, I forgot about this part. This part is heartbreaking. When they're stopped and gunshots can be heard. Sadly, one of Kendrick's friends, Dave, not to be confused with Dave Free. Dave Free is very still alive, obviously. His friend Dave is sadly gunned down and killed. Now we get to the saddest song on the album, but also probably my favorite song on the album. Well, my favorite song on the bass album. It's my second favorite song on this record because it's the deluxe one. But this is Sing About Me, I'm Dying of Thirst. This could have been 2 songs, but the fact that the topic is, it's pretty much this one topic, it makes sense to be one song. And this song is the climax of the album. This is like when I feel the third act is starting. So the first 3 verses are rapping from perspectives of different people. And the first verse is rapped from the perspective of Dave's brother. From the lyrics, it seems like this is a message to Kendrick that's like on his voice recorder from the next day. He thanks Kendrick for loving Dave like he was his own flesh and blood, like his own brother. And he says essentially that he's stuck in the gang life and that he wanted to get back at the one who killed Dave. Sadly, the verse ends abruptly with the sounds of gunshots, and that indicates or alludes to the fact that he was most likely killed to gun violence, sadly, as well. The second verse raps from the perspective of a character not introduced in this album, but in Section 80. Remember when I said Section 80 was important earlier to one of the songs? This is that moment. There was a song on Section 80 called Keisha's Song, and it's essentially about to my knowledge, from my memory, I could be totally wrong, so sorry if I am. It's about one of Kendrick's female friends who sold herself to prostitution, and one of her clients ended up murdering her. So it's a cautionary tale and something that he felt like he had to talk on. So the perspective of this verse is from her sister. She says how she feels like he was wrong to use a sister's story as a cautionary tale to get girls to avoid doing sex work since she does it as well. In between some insults that she throws at Kendrick, she mentions, I'm kind of exhausted, But no, fuck that sorry for your loss shit. And also says that she doesn't need to see a doctor. Why would she need to see a doctor? The verse ends with her yelling that she'll never fade away, never fade away. As the chorus ends, though, her voice starts to fade away. And this alludes that she also has died, but she died to either STDs or an STI, unfortunately, due to her involvement in sex work. Now, if I were to give my opinion on sex work, in my opinion, as long as you're safe about it, then you do your thing, I respect it. It's fine. Just be safe about it, okay? And last, the third verse goes back to Kendrick's perspective. He questions himself why he's so infatuated with death, because a lot of the songs on this album does talk about death. He also responds to both Dave's brother and Keisha's sister, telling Dave's brother that he was right, that Dave really was a brother to him. And he apologizes to Keisha's sister and says that he didn't mean to offend anyone with it, and that it was meant to be a cautionary tale, and felt that her story just needed to be told for the sake of others. He ultimately hopes that people will remember him when he's gone and will sing about him, and remember his music and, leave a legacy behind. At this point, we're 6 minutes into this 12-minute song. This is a very long song. I think I forgot to mention that. This is why that's why a part of me thinks it could have been split into 2 songs, but I think it's actually more impactful that it's just one song. So the beat stops, and we hear a voice recording that takes place shortly after Dave was gunned down. The whole group is angry, and rightfully so. They're angry, they're upset, and you can hear Dave's brother crying and saying that he's just tired of running and he wants to get back at them. He wants to avenge his brother. He's sick of running. He doesn't want to be scared anymore, and he's done. Then we get a new beat, and it's very haunting. It's so haunting. It's more haunting than Good Kids was, and Good Kids was very haunting. And it changes the vibe of this song from a sad song to a very angry song. The way that the beat makes it feels like they're in the car and they have guns and they're getting ready to go back and to kill the motherfuckers that killed Dave. However, if you look at the lyrics, it actually says otherwise. It's just that the tone that's being kind of thrown out there and the beat being played makes it seem like they're dying of thirst for blood, when really it's something else. So Kendrick is expressing throughout this part of the song that he has been sinning way too much and that he needs to change that and not take his life for granted. Which, after you've lost someone you're so close to, you kind of start to think about these things like life is fragile, life is short, and you never know when it's going to end. I have these thoughts whenever I lost my uncles or whenever I lost my grandma. You get these thoughts, and I bet it's extra hard when you see them die right in front of you. He emphasizes multiple times, like so much throughout the song, that hell is hot, hell is real. He can die any day, especially in the environment that he's currently growing up in. So while I originally implied when I first listened to this without looking at the lyrics, implied that the song Dying of Thirst represented thirst for blood, it's actually a thirst for holy water. And this is when him and his friends decide to get baptized. And the song makes that apparent at the end of this track, which, remember that prayer I mentioned at the beginning of the song I said would be important for a track later? Here it is. It's come back. They cut back to the end of the voice recording that was in the middle of the song, and this old lady walks up to them and is shocked to see that they have a gun and to see him so angry, and explains, hey, what's going on here is you're dying of thirst for holy water, and you need some, and stuff like that. And it really encourages them to go seek God and, religion to help with this loss instead of going for violence. And this just brings the album full circle. Now, this song is called Real, and I believe it takes place right after the events of the last song. Kendrick is dropped off by his friends, and he looks himself in the mirror, and he says how he's thankful to be alive, and he wonders if he should hate everything that's everyone involved. If he should hate Shireen, if he should hate the people that killed Dave, or if he should hate the fact that if these things didn't happen to him, he wouldn't be his real self. He then gets a voicemail from his mom and dad telling him that they're sorry for his loss, as well as telling him not to worry about the car, because it's just a car. I mean, it's nothing compared to losing your friend. Losing a car is just it's replaceable. Your friend is not. She also lets him know that Top Dog, the head of TDE, which is Kendrick Lamar's former record label, wants to meet him and his dad at the studio the next day and talk with them about his music. She ends the voicemail by saying, "Take this music business seriously, and once you make it big, tell the world your story." And that's just what he did with this album. And we come back to the present with the last song on the bass album called Compton. This song concludes the normal version of the album, and it jumps back to the present day, where Kendrick has just released Section 80 and has made it big. And this is proven just by having Dr. Dre on the track. I mean, whoa, Dr. Dre's big business. The way I picture this is the ending of it, where he's made it big and he's back in Compton performing in front of all these people, this whole city that he originally thought that was against him. If you remember from Mad City, if Pirates and Crips all got along, they probably got me down by the end of the song, and proving from Good Kid that people respect the Good Kid Mad City. And he's performing in front of this crowd of audience with Dr. Dre at his side in Compton. And yeah, the end credit. Then after that, I imagine end credits, which is what I consider the last 3 tracks, which are the bonus tracks included with this version of the album. So now these ones, I don't have to pinpoint to a story because I feel like these are all just credit scenes. First one's called The Recipe. Dr. Dre comes through with another feature. And this song is essentially about smoking weed and living the life. Of the bonus tracks, honestly, for me, this is my least favorite. But I will say the beat fucks hard. Next one's Black Boy Fly. This song is seemingly about Kendrick reflecting on being envious of those who made it out of Compton. He talks about how he sometimes felt discouraged whenever he'd heard crime happening around him. And he talks about how he wasn't sure if he himself would make it out of Compton or not, but as we can tell, he definitely most certainly has. And then we get to my favorite track, as well as the closing track for the deluxe version of Good Kid, M.A.A.d City, Now or Never. This song is all about how it feels to be where he's at now, and just how overall happy he is that he was able to become as successful as he is, and being able to do what he loves to do. Mary J. Blige, I might have butchered that, I'm sorry if I did, brings so much soul to this and spirit to the song, and joy and happiness. And it's just pure ear candy. She kills it. And she sings about similar things. Overall, this song, as well as Compton, so either version of this album, it's just a beautiful ending to the album, because this whole album was so dark, full of so much darkness and crime and sadness and, loss. And it's great to see how at the end of this album, how happy Kendrick is, how successful he is, and just how far he's come from being in Section 8 to now owning, I think, a couple mansions and winning the rap beef of the century, essentially. Anyways, yeah, that was Good Kid, M.A.A.d City Deluxe Edition. I hope you guys enjoyed this review. I hope I was respectful. I really did try my hardest to be as accurate as I can with this, though I might have gotten the names of some artists wrong, and, I did kind of dog on Drake's part in this album, but whatever. I do hope that I came in with respect, and I honestly think, even though this is mainly targeted to a different demographic, I do think people who are in my position should listen to this song as well as the rest of Kendrick's music to put in perspective, like, some of the hardships that people like me don't have to face in this world, and really shine light onto these problems that are occurring that we need to, fight against, like police brutality, like gang violence, like all this awful stuff. Anyways, guys, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, hit notification about when you do, and let me know what your thoughts on this album was. What's your favorite song? What'd you take away from it? And yeah, so long and good night.